So friends, hello to all. Today I would like to conduct a comparative analysis of several manufacturers of feminine hygiene pads. For tests, we will take exactly those pads that are used and sold in stores today. You yourself know all these manufacturers. And for comparison, we will take pads with an on-chip from the Health Priority Company. And what I would like to first draw your attention to is what raw materials feminine hygiene pads are made of. On each package the manufacturer places a similar marking. Here we see in the triangle 4LDP, this means that the pads are made from secondary raw materials. Where does the secondary raw material for the production of such pads come from? These are disposable dishes, plastic bags, bottles. All this is usually collected in city landfills. Then it is processed, a lot of chemistry is added and bleached. Well, and then we get raw materials, pads from the Health Prior Company. They are made exclusively from primary raw materials. The appropriate marking is placed on the package. You can see that there is a triangle without the number 4. Next, let's look at how the feminine sanitary napkins themselves are packaged. We take out one of them. We see that they are packaged in such a package, and this package is not hermetic. When such a napkin is carried somewhere in a bag, the remains of dust, dirt, everything that is lying in the bag can get here. And another very important point is that feminine sanitary napkins are usually stored in some bathroom where there is increased humidity. Accordingly, this is a great environment for bacteria to multiply. Next, let's look at how feminine sanitary pads from another manufacturer are packaged. Here we still see the same non-hermetic bag. There can be no question of any sterility here. Everything gets into it. It gets into the feminine sanitary pad, which girls then successfully use. If we take the packaging from Health Priority, it is made entirely of foil in foil. Materially, bacteria do not multiply. Here is a protective film, glue, which is reusable. You can open it, close it again, and the package will be hermetic. We take out the insert itself. Here we see how it is packed. In fact, when turning it over, we see that it is completely wrapped in foil. This is a protective material and it is completely hermetic. And now let's look at what properties the inserts themselves have. We will unpack them in the first sample. We see that glue is always applied on the back. Usually technical glue is used after such an insert has been glued to the underwear. The technical glue does not fully adapt, and this underwear will no longer be able to be worn without, of course, inserts. We unpack the second insert, but here it is approximately the same situation. Usually technical glue is used. Now we will unpack the insert from the Health Priority Company. Let me remind you that here is a completely hermetic package. Here are 4 thin strips of food glue applied, and let's do some experiments. Tests on the absorption of these pads. The peculiarity of technical glue is that it contains formaldehydes. While in food glue it is not, it is absolutely safe for women's health. Next, we will pack these pads. Look at their appearance. I am not entirely clear why the manufacturer does and adds additional coloring, because this color, although it may be some food coloring, will further decompose upon contact with moisture. Additional coloring is not used in Health Priority. We see that the pad is completely white and has a built-in chip, which we will talk about later. And now let's check the pads for absorption properties. Each pad, according to the standard, must absorb approximately 50 milliliters. So, now we will accurately and carefully pour the indicated amount into each of these pads. Slowly pour the liquid into each of them and, of course, give them time to soak. Okay, 1 minute has passed. Let's now check how the pads absorb the liquid. The first sample. We see that the pad did not absorb the liquid. The napkin is completely wet. We take the second manufacturer. The situation, it's the same. We see that the pads did not cope with the absorption. The liquid according to the stated characteristics, and of course the same experiment that we conducted with the Health Priority pads. All knock, we see that this pad is completely dry. According to the declared moisture absorption properties, this girdle pad coped with it completely. Okay. The next thing I would like to show is what material the layers of these pads are made of. Let's look at the layers of each manufacturer. The top layer in the pad stores, as I already mentioned, is made entirely of synthetic material. It is still wet. In addition, printing ink is applied to it. It's not very clear why they do this, because when exposed to moisture, there is a high probability that this paint will start to decompose. Let's look at the same thing from the next manufacturer, what the top layer is made of. That's usually it, but here we really see that it's a common synthetic. The material is still wet, the surface is porous so that it can absorb. But there is also an unclear printing ink applied there. Why is this done? Probably even the manufacturer himself does not really understand it, and let's look at the top layer of health priority pads. It is completely natural, perfectly clean, does not cause any irritation. If you could hold it in your hands now, you would see that this layer is already completely dry. In addition, there is an anion chip in this layer. I will now remove it, we will talk about it separately. What we need it for, and now let's look at the layer in which the gel is wrapped. In sanitary napkin stores, the gel is also wrapped in synthetic material. This gel is not up to the task with the declared characteristics. If I now squeeze water out of it, then all the water will not be absorbed anywhere. Yes, the composition on the surface of this gel. Let's look at two manufacturers. Here in fact the situation is absolutely the same. What does this gel consist of? It is processed cellulose. Let's see how much water we can squeeze out of it. Now let's look at the layer in which the EHM gel is wrapped. Health Priority Pro Qvark. This is, first of all, absolutely 100% natural cotton. It does not cause any irritation. The entire layer of gel is a mixture of starches. It is completely natural. Let's try to squeeze liquid out of it. It does not squeeze out. To demonstrate the absorption properties of this gel, I will put it in a glass of water and wait a while. The next thing I would like to draw your attention to is the bottom layers, from which women's sanitary pads are made. The bottom layer is completely ordinary polyethylene. It never breathes, does not let air through. Let's take another manufacturer. Accordingly, here the situation is absolutely the same. A similar layer protects against leakage, but does not support air exchange. If there is no air circulation, there is humidity, temperature, on average 37 degrees. This is a great environment for the reproduction of bacteria. If we look at the bottom layer of health priority pads, it is a permeable layer. It does not let water through, but at the same time does not block air exchange. And we can do this with a simple experiment, which we will do in a moment. Now I would like to return to the gel. It stood before your eyes, and of course you can see that this gel, in addition to the fact that we poured about 50 meters of liquid into it, also had about 100 milliliters of liquid in the glass, and it was completely absorbed. Next we will do a simple experiment to see how well the health priority insert, and more precisely its top layer, lets air. We take a glass with boiling water, cover it with an empty glass, stacked from above. Now literally in 10 seconds we will witness that the top glass has completely condensed. This exactly proves that the insert post PADA supports air exchange. I'm not sure if it will be seen well on the video, so I will film it once again. I will show this apathy. I think it should be seen. Next I would like to dwell in more detail on the Anion chip that we previously removed from the health priority insert. This chip is a material doctor. There are tourmaline fibers entangled, so they release air anions. What are they anions? These are particles with a negative charge. The presence of such particles prevents the growth of bacteria and fungi in the insert. So that I am not just talking. Let's really check these chips. They really release anions in the optics. I have specialized equipment. This is a tester. It measures the amount of anions that are in the air in every cubic centimeter. The stable amount of anions is from 20 to 25 units. Let's do such a measurement. Now I have zeroed this device and literally, in a few seconds it will show us what amount of anions is in this case in this room. Now we see the values, it is 14 units per cc. Then we will take manufacturers, quite well-known manufacturers, who claim that their inserts also contain an anion chip. Hey, and that they are just as useful. Let's unpack those inserts. In fact, we see that they also have a chip built into them. Then we take the pads of another manufacturer, quite well known. They also claim that they have an anion chip. They use this in advertising in every possible way, but as I said, let's be specific and still verify it using specialized equipment, because today we live in an era when advertising is being sold. And of course, as advertising goes right, various characteristics on the packaging, but in reality there is nothing there. Here we see that the anion chip is very similar to the same chip that is used in health priority pads. So we take one pad from health priority with an anion chip. The chips look very similar visually, they practically do not differ. And now I will disconnect this equipment and attach it to the first manufacturer's pads. Now we have an indicator, it is 16 units. I remind you that the average statistical values of anions in the air are from 15 to 25 units. This means that these pads do not emit any additional amount and now we will check the pads of the next manufacturer, which also claim to have an anion chip. In fact, we see it visually, it is very similar. There is a picture, a pattern of tourmaline fibers, but let's still see what the equipment will show us. Here we see 22 units. I remind you once again that in the free space up to 25 units the anions are located by themselves. Therefore, this anion chip from this manufacturer also does not create any additional effect or release of anions, and now we will check how much anions the chips from the health priority pads release. We start the tester, attach it to the chip of the health priority pads, and literally in a few seconds we will see results. I remind you that the average statistical values, the presence of anions in the air is from 14 to 25 units. This means that the previous two manufacturers showed during testing that their anion chips basically do not work. Additionally, there is no amount of anions. Now I show you the values from health priority pads, namely 898 units per cubic cm. This is the amount of anions that is released by this chip. The health priority company has night pads. Daily everyday just daily night pads contain an anion chip in them, and in everyday pads there are also additional chips. Let's see how it works. This chip is made of yew wood. This is a special fiber, and let's see what properties this chip has. It is a different color, you see, it is so pink. When exposed to temperature, this chip is activated. Now we will remove it from this pad. It looks like this. We take a glass of water. Pour 20 minutes of liquid here. I have iodine ready. We make 3 drops of iodine. You see that the water has turned colored. That is my acidic environment, and now we place this chip in this water. But I think it will also be visible on the camera that literally after 3 seconds the water has changed color, it has become translucent again. This proves that the chip in everyday pads inhibits the decomposition of melanin, which is very beneficial for our body. Friends, now I will confirm to you with the help of fairly simple experiments How to check the pads. Even that I used professional equipment. Therefore, never get caught by marketing tricks. They will do absolutely everything to make you believe and buy their products. But, as you have seen today, that product has absolutely no positive effect. While as usual such pads cost quite a lot of money. But you have to decide,